Chasing the Cherubim. In this video, we will be chasing the cherubim through the 4 stories in the Old Testament of the Bible where they are found. Through words and pictures, we hope to capture them, or at least some of their meaning. So what are the cherubim? Here we see several ancient Middle Eastern statues, head-on and in profile. They are thought to represent cherubim in their classical form. They have a human head, the body of an ox and/or a lion, and the wings of an eagle. They are one of the higher orders of angels, representing divine authority in human life. And in the Bible stories that follow, we will be paying particular attention to their position relative to the people involved. The first place in the Bible where the cherubim are found is in the Garden of Eden. Here we see the trees of the garden in the center, with the cherubim at the gate, perhaps waving goodbye to Adam, with Eve being expelled at the top. Here we see the cherubim looking out, with a flaming sword in the gate to prevent a return to the garden. It never says that Adam looked back, and there is no description here of what the cherubim looked like, or even how many there were. But I usually think there were just 2. Since God himself walked right down in the garden, perhaps the angels had no need for wings. Here they are shown as lesser figures surrounding a central one. Then again, maybe they did have wings to aid them in driving Adam out. Here they are shown as being active mediators of divine authority. One thing for sure is the cherubim were always behind Adam, and though perhaps not seen, their presence could be felt. Here is Adam again, this time in the negative, emerging from the very center of the snowflake. And like a toddler being weaned out into the world, Adam carries within an imprint of Mother Eve. Clouds are seen on the horizon to either side, with the eyes of the cherubim ever above and behind. The next place in the Bible where the cherubim show up is in the book of Exodus, which is basically the story of the journey from bondage to freedom. There they appear in the tent of meeting, which was entered from the east, and inside was a curtain with cherubim embroidered on it. They are not described, but as shown here, it looks like they could be dancing against one another. Behind the curtain was the most holy place, indicated here by the star at the center. And there was kept the Ark of the Covenant, a box containing the 10 Commandments, the law. Note the Hebrew writing on the side. And on both ends of the cover, which was called the mercy seat, was a statue of a cherub facing inward with its wings spread out above. Other than having wings, these cherubim are not described, but here they assume their classical form. And God said to Moses, "There, between the cherubim from above the mercy seat, I will meet with you and deliver my commands." Here we see the divine light above and the cherubim's wings connecting them to it. Those wings can also be seen as God's arms sweeping down and around to touch and encourage the cherubim. Their crossing tails seem to indicate that they are also keeping in touch with their neighbors, undergoing similar trials next door. Moses, the leader of the Exodus, is not even shown here, but he must be nearby, because there, in that most holy place, he has taken off his sandals, shown down in front. It does not say that God spoke through the cherubim, but that certainly seems to be what is happening here. The heads of those statues have come alive, and their touching wings are coordinating the message. Actually, as illustrated here, this looks more like a couple of parents laying down the law to a child. The cherubim are facing in opposite directions, and thus may be considered opposites. So if they were ever to meet, they might cancel each other out, which seems to be what is happening here, with their heads going blank. Or their coming together might ignite the creative fire, shown here in their united hearts. Maybe creation comes out of the union of opposites. But how do they do that anyway? The dark head here in the center is looking both to the left and to the right, just as Moses might have done on the mercy seat. In both directions, he sees a cherub face on. They appear the same, though in fact they are facing in opposite directions. The next time we meet them, it will be just the other way around. The third place in the Bible where cherubim appear is in Solomon's temple. This picture is meant to represent the entrance, which, like the tent of meeting, was on the east. It is described as being square, with 2 folding doors made of cypress wood. On these doors were carved palm trees, cherubim, and open flowers. They represent divine authority between male and female elements. The walls inside the temple were also decorated with palm trees, open flowers, and cherubim. At the far end of the nave were doors to the inner sanctuary, corresponding to the curtain in the tent of meeting. They formed a pentagon and were made of olive wood, a native tree. These also had cherubim, palm trees, and open flowers carved into them. Behind these doors, in the inner sanctuary, where only the priests and authorities could go, were two huge cherubim. They both faced straight forward. Their outer wings touched opposite walls, and their inner wings touched each other. Below and between them was the Ark of the Covenant, containing the law. These cherubim loomed large in front of the people worshiping in the nave, but were rarely, if ever, seen by them behind the inner sanctuary doors. They represent divinely ordained religious and governmental authority. The figure here at the center is standing with the law between the two cherubim. From there, they appear to be facing in opposite directions, to the left and to the right. But in fact, they are facing in the same direction, and that direction is power over the people. The final appearance of the cherubim in the Bible comes in the visions of Ezekiel when he was in exile in Babylon. His homeland had been conquered by King Nebuchadnezzar, and in despair Ezekiel wandered off from his fellow exiles, alone. Now these are his words. Out of the north came a stormy wind and a great cloud, and fire flashed forth continuously. Ezekiel drops his staves, filled with amazement and terror. And in the midst of the fire, there was something like gleaming bronze. The vision that Ezekiel sees is actually exploding out of his own head, as though he were struck with the bronze weaponry from a previous heroic age. And from the midst of it came something like 4 living creatures. Here we see him struck down at the center with the living creatures bursting forth above. These he will later identify as cherubim. Actually, he is bringing into consciousness, out in front of him, fragmented memories of cherubim from his past, as he seeks authority for action in his present exile. Now he will describe them in detail. The first place in the Bible this happens, and as we shall see, they are utterly transformed from their classical configuration. Each had human form, with 4 faces and 4 wings. 2 wings touched the wing of another, and 2 wings covered its body. These living creatures are actually composites of Ezekiel's own body and remembered cherubim from the past. The body is covered up as authority goes into the head. Their touching wings hold them together in a circle, as Ezekiel tries to hold the competing concerns of his life together. These concerns are symbolized by the 4 faces, each pointing in a different direction, north, south, east, or west. The living creatures moved straight forward without turning, and each had the face of a human. This face looks to the south and shines with the light of knowledge, reflecting Ezekiel's own face and what was taught in the temple in the past. Now that secure circumference of beliefs is being carried into the future through Ezekiel alone. Each had the face of a lion on the right side. Though shown here face on, the lion was seen by Ezekiel only in profile, facing east, which was the side of the temple where the door had been. Coming out of the west, the lion is the killer, representing everything that must be done to obtain food and prosper, our work, our careers. People had been educated and transformed in the temple, exiting into the world as the Lion of Judah, shining with power. Each had the face of an ox on the left side. The ox likewise was seen by Ezekiel only in profile. It looks to the west and symbolizes the body, which, like the sun coming out of the east, rises, reaches a zenith, and declines. But unlike the sun, the body is mortal and is symbolized by the mortal moon. People had entered the temple as mere bodies and exited to prosper in the world. Each had the face of an eagle. Like Ezekiel, the eagle is facing north, where it is dark, symbolizing the unknown, the future, ultimately death. He can't see the eagle's faces around on the backs of the cherubim's heads, but he knows they're there because they're coming out of his own head. This vision is analogous to modern consciousness, wherein what is in the mind is visualized out in front. And like Ezekiel, what we see most readily is our present knowledge and beliefs, blocking out the future and death. So far, we have seen that the animals composing the cherubim have all gone into Ezekiel's head. And this is also analogous to what happens today when people incorporate the authority figures in their lives to become authorities themselves. But for Ezekiel, in his exile, this was not enough. And now we return to his words from his first vision. In the midst of the living creatures, there were coals flaring up into torches, moving to and fro among them. These are the spotlights of consciousness, exploring and highlighting the concerns symbolized by the 4 faces. The 4 cherubim surround the coals, and each presents a different face to be spotlighted. Generally, people are able to bring into consciousness only this limited field surrounding the coals. But Ezekiel's vision is a symbolic construct of the entire mind, and now we are looking at how it all works. Here at the center we see the coals, suggesting fragmented bodies upside down, paralyzed as it were, when all the body's energy is diverted into conscious thought. And out of the fire went forth lightning, and like lightning the living creatures darted to and fro. So not only do the spotlights of consciousness move, but what they focus on moves also. Everything is moving. Just so our thoughts are shifted from subject to subject instantaneously, like lightning. And there was a wheel on the earth beside each of the 4 living creatures, constructed something like a wheel within a wheel. The cherubim can be rolled north-south and east-west to reveal and contemplate every aspect of our concerns through time and space. The wheels were full of eyes, and the wheels were called the whirling wheels. The wheels of thought, with the eyes of awareness, are whirling. When the living creatures went, the wheels went with them, for the spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels. The appearance of one thought seen through the eyes in the wheels motivates wheeling over to the next thought. The spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels. And this is probably what is going on inside our heads much of the time, even when not spotlighted into consciousness. Over their heads was the likeness of a firmament, and the sound of their wings as they went was like the thunder of the Almighty. After the thoughts that flash about like lightning comes the thunder of beating wings, desperately trying to hold things together and searching for answers from above. And when they stood still, they let down their wings, and I heard a voice from above. Only with the relaxation of effort does the firmament become clear and answers start to come. For us, when we think, answers, inspirations, usually seem to come from we know not where. But for Ezekiel, there was a voice and a clear image. Above the firmament was the likeness of a human on a throne. Above the loins, like fire enclosed by bronze, and below the loins, like fire. Above the firmament is beyond ordinary physical reality, the realm of the divine. The fires above and below the loins are shown here as stars. It does not say that that fire from the loins down went all the way down to light the coals of consciousness, but those coals were directly below. And if there is a human connection with the divine, it would surely include the mystery of consciousness. And there was a brightness like a rainbow round about this. Such was the appearance of the glory of the Lord. Here we see the fire going all the way down to the coals at the center, with cherubim to either side. The rainbow suggests that the storm that was in Ezekiel's head has passed, and a course of action has come. Some scholars think that St. Paul later identified this figure of the glory of the Lord as the Christ. Then the Spirit lifted me up as the glory of the Lord arose. Ezekiel is propelled by the Spirit to act as his vision is disappearing. And what I heard behind me was the sound of the wings and the wheels rumbling. The cherubim are now re-entering Ezekiel's head, and because he was turning to go back to his fellow exiles as he arose, they are now all going in the same direction. But apparently their re-entry while Ezekiel was turning caused some rumbling. But his mind is now clear, containing the firmament, with the fire from above at its center. And I went in bitterness in the heat of my spirit, the hand of the Lord being strong upon me. The hand of the Lord is invisible, but the foundation on which Ezekiel now stands is clear. It is the eye of the mind, receiving and reflecting the divine light. The cherubim's wheels are now Ezekiel's wheels, propelling him on a lonely road of responsibility. For an exile, the old answers are sometimes not enough, and what allows going forward is the enlightenment that comes through the miracle of the mind.